Today's session focuses on services for children during disasters. We'll examine how disasters uniquely affect children and how systems of care must adapt to meet those needs. Children are not simply a smaller version of adults. The physical, developmental, and social needs require targeted planning and response. As nurses, your role is critical, not only in direct care, but also in advocacy, coordination, and ensuring that children are not overlooked in disaster systems. By the end of this session, you should be able to define what we mean by child in legal and global context. Discuss the special considerations that make children uniquely vulnerable during disasters. And finally, distinguish between temporary respite care and traditional child care, particularly in disaster setting. These objectives align with your role as a future nurses who must recognize and respond to vulnerable populations. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of Children defines a child as any human being under the age of 18 unless legal majority is reached earlier. This definition is important because disaster systems often rely on legal definitions to determine eligibility for services, protections, and reunification processes. In practice, children include a wide developmental range, from newborns to adolescents, each with very different needs. It is essential to recognize that child is not a single category, but a spectrum of developmental stages. The UN definition on children is listed in this slide. In the United States, children make up a substantial portion of the population, approximately 1/4. Despite this, children are often grouped into general population categories in disaster planning, which can result in unmet needs. Children require age-specific resources such as formula for infants, supervision for toddlers, and mental health support for adolescents. This means disaster planning must move beyond a one-size-fits-all model and instead incorporate developmentally appropriate strategies for our 73.7 million children. Children progress through multiple developmental stages, each with distinct physical and cognitive characteristics. For example, neonates require an intensive physiologic support, while adolescents face more psychosocial challenges. Understanding these stages is critical because disaster response must be tailored accordingly. For instance, a toddler cannot follow evacuation instructions independently, while adolescent may experience complex emotional trauma. Now, I know you've had this in another class, but a neonate or a newborn is 0 to 30 days. An infant or a baby is 1 month to 1 year. A toddler is 1 to 4 years. Play age, early childhood, is 3 to 6 years. Elementary school age is 4 to 8 years. Pre-adolescent or a tween is 10 to 12 years. And adolescence and puberty, youth teen, are 12 to 21 years. One of the most important principles in this: children are not little adults. They have different physiology. For example, they breathe faster, which increases exposure to airborne toxins. They are also physically closer to the ground, where some chemical agents accumulate. Additionally, children have thinner skin and lower fluid reserves, increasing the risk of dehydration and toxin absorption. These differences make them biologically more vulnerable in disasters. Again, children are not little adults. they have important physiologic differences, and you need to make sure that you are aware of these and why children are particularly vulnerable to aerosols, biological and chemical agents. Children also have developmental vulnerabilities. Young children may not recognize danger or know how to seek help. They rely heavily on caregivers for basic needs such as feeding, hygiene, and safety. They are also more susceptible to infectious disease due to behaviors like touching surfaces or putting objects in their mouths. Importantly, children are highly influenced by caregivers' emotions. If caregivers are distressed, children often mirror that distress. Children's ongoing cognitive and social development poses a challenge. So, a child's reaction to a new situation may vary, and we know that this is related to their developmental age. Um, they also have many ongoing needs that will need to be addressed: feeding, bathing, changing, and toileting. And they are also more vulnerable to the spread of infectious disease, as well as exposure to toxins. This is why vaccinations are critically important for children. Disasters often disrupt systems that children depend on, including schools and childcare. Evacuation plans may not adequately account for children, leading to separation and reunification challenges. In shelters, child-specific supplies such as formula, diapers, and age-appropriate food are essential. Planning must also account for allergies, chronic conditions, and feeding requirements. Without these considerations, children's health can deteriorate. Evacuation plans may not incorporate children, so reunification could be an issue. Children's services and schooling have to be addressed. So, children are also considered part of the functional needs population. This includes those who require assistance with communication, mobility, supervision, or medical care. Disasters often amplify existing vulnerabilities. For example, a child with a disability may require specialized equipment or caregivers that are not readily available during emergencies. This requires more individualized planning and resource allocations. Individuals in need of additional response assistance may include those who have disabilities, who live in institutional settings, who are elderly, or who are from diverse cultures, who have limited English proficiency, who are children, or who are transportation disadvantaged. Incorporated, so these are just some of the issues related to children. And when people have functional needs that are present, those are usually present before, during, and after a disaster. So one of the things you want to do is make sure they maintain independence, they're able to communicate, that there is available transportation, that there is adequate supervision, and that there is appropriate medical care. Children are not a homogeneous group. Some may be in foster care, experiencing homelessness, or living in unstable environments. Others may have language barriers or cultural differences or medical conditions. Each of these factors influences how a child experiences and responds to a disaster. As a nurse, you must assess the contextual factors when planning care. If you look at this, just think about all the different types of children that you may see. Children require safety, supervision, and access to education during disasters. They are at increased risk of abuse, neglect due to caregiver stress, and disruptive environments. Maintaining educational activities is important because it restores structure and it allows parents to focus on recovery tasks. Transportation disruptions can also affect access to care, schooling, and services. So, planning must include how children will safely access essential services. One of the most protective factors for children is normalcy. Maintaining routine schedules and familiar activities reduces psychological stress. Play and interaction with other children are not optional, they are essential for recovery. Family unity is also critical. Children do better when they remain with caregivers who provide stability and reassurance. And long term housing stability is another key factor in recovery. There are multiple systems designed to support children during a disaster. These include child care services, respite care, reunification systems, child welfare agencies, and mental health services. Each plays a distinct role in ensuring children's safety and recovery. Understanding how these systems interact is essential for effective coordination. Child care services provide supervision and meet daily needs. These may include licensed caregiver centers, home-based care, or informal care by relatives. Licensing ensures minimum safety standards, though it does not guarantee quality. In disaster recovery, referral to licensed providers is recommended to ensure safety and accountability. Temporary respite care is not the same as child care. It is a short-term supervised service provided in disaster settings such as shelters or recovery centers. Its purpose is to give caregivers temporary relief while remaining nearby. Children are not separated from caregivers long term, and caregivers must remain on site. The distinction is important for both the safety and legal reasons. Children may become separated from caregivers during disasters. Reunification systems are critical. The American Red Cross Safe and Well system allows individuals to register their status, and the Emergency Child Locator Center and FEMA systems may also activate. These systems coordinate across agencies to reunite families as quickly as possible. In some cases, children may require involvement from child welfare services. Disasters can increase rates of abuse, neglect, and family disruption. Children may become separated from caregivers due to illness, death, or displacement. In these situations, legal and protective systems must intervene to ensure safety. Disasters can increase the number of runaway and homeless youth. Stress, trauma, and disruption may cause youth to leave their home environments. There are 1.7 million runaways and homeless youth each year. These populations require targeted outreach and services, including shelter and support systems. National research such as hotlines and youth services play a key role. Housing is one of the greatest challenges after a disaster. Families with children require stable, safe environments to recover. Damaged infrastructure and limited availability complicate these processes. FEMA and local agencies play a major role in housing assistance, so priority placement for families with children is often necessary. Restoring education is a priority in disaster recovery. Schools provide structure, normalcy, and social support. They also allow caregivers to focus on real building and recovery. Coordination with local school systems and community organizations is essential. Providing supplies and extracurricular activities further supports recovery. Um, and the extra activities could include things like after school activities and day camps. So remember, it's really important for children to participate in educational activities. Children experience significant psychological effects during disasters. They may include trauma from evacuation, loss, displacement, and disruption of routines. Children may not always verbalize distress, but symptoms can appear behaviorally. Early identification and support are critical to prevent long-term mental health complications. Some of the things that cause the extra stress for children are the chaos of the evacuation, loss of their family and friends, destruction of their homes and property, removal from familiar surroundings, separation from their community structure, and disruption of their routine. Disasters disproportionately affect vulnerable populations, especially children. A wide range of resources exist at the federal, state, and community levels. However, these resources are only effective if professionals advocate for their use. So, a call to action: you need to advocate for inclusive planning and equitable access for children. As a nurse, you have a role in making sure all children are safe.